guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we are talking about how you compare versus other retirees. How much have you saved? So we're going to be looking at some charts here today, and we're going to be specifically gearing this towards our U.S. audience since we are from the U.S. So this information is going to be very specific to you. If you're from other countries and you're watching this, you can kind of compare this to your numbers from your country as well.
Yeah, so let's start with the mean retirement savings by age. This is a very telling stat. Now we don't actually like this one as much as we like the median, but this is what you mostly hear, which is just the average retirement savings. So we're going to throw the chart up here, and our age range, 45 to 54, in 2022, the mean or average was $313,220. And as you see, it goes up by age range. 55 to 64, they had a little over 500,000. 65 to 74, 600,000, and then it starts to drop once you get over 75. I guess they've spent some of that money already, so they are down to 462,411. What's interesting also is that when you're under 35, they're less than 50,000, and it jumps up pretty significantly from 49,000 to 141,000 from 35 to 44.
Yeah, I think these numbers are really staggering, the difference between those younger than 35 all the way up to those older than 75 or older. But for us specifically in our age range, you know, like you mentioned earlier, we don't really love these numbers specifically because they don't really paint the real picture, and I think it could really skew what, you know, the whole process for you if you go by just these numbers.
Yeah, this is the number that you normally hear, but it is basically the average, which means they're taking all the money of all the people and dividing it by how many people they are. But if there's someone that has $1 billion in your age range, it's going to skew that number much higher. So it's not that everybody is sitting around in our age range with $300,000. Most people in our age range have 100,000, and there's a few people with 40 billion. So that's, you know, what it is, and that makes the average 300,000, but that's not really a good picture. So I think a lot of people hear this number though, and they hear, oh, I'm way behind because that number, but it's kind of a misleading number. So let's look at the real number, which we like to use, which is the median. Now the median, what that means is if you had 100 people and you basically got rid of 49 on both sides, the two in the middle would be the two median people, and that's basically the number that you're, whatever they had, that's the median. So the median for our age range is 115,000. So basically what that means is half the people in the US in our age range have more than 115,000. Half the people in the US in our age range have less than 115,000. That's 200,000 less than the average, the mean number that we showed. But this is really the true number if you're gauging yourself on, do I have more or less than the rest of the people in my country? This is the one you want to look at.
Yeah, I think that if you're using, you know, the mean, it definitely is going to throw you off track. You're going to be like, I am way off. Like, everyone else seems to have way more money, you know, saved up than I do. But when you look at the real numbers, the median really tells the true story. And that is closer to what we know from those around us in our age range. It is much closer to what people have saved.
Yeah, most people that we talk to in our age range, they do have around $100,000, and that's accurate. Most people younger than 35, they don't have much more than 18,000. And then this, you can see it goes up in the same order that the other one did, peaking at 65 to 74 at $200,000. So if you have over $200,000, you have more than the median of any age range out there, which is the highest is a 65 to 74. So the numbers are quite a bit different. What's also interesting about this is when you look back in time, ours is 115,000 right now. But back in 1989, that was only 39,000, and it's gone up quite a bit. The biggest jump came in the 90s to the 2000s, and almost doubled in those couple of decades right there. So it's very interesting and different than what you hear, and it really kind of drives home the point that you may not be as far behind as you think you are.
Yeah, and I think that's really what people more need to hear, so that they don't feel so overwhelmed, like, oh my gosh, 300,000, I'm nowhere near that. But then you look at the real number, 115,000. That's more manageable. That doesn't seem so overwhelming that you are so behind when you look at that number.
Yeah, and again, that is only the U.S. and the U.S. has the most comprehensive retirement structure. We are the one country that has saved the most for retirement. So when you look at that versus the rest of the world, you're even further ahead. You're way far out in front of the rest of the world. It's not even really a comparison when you look at the retirement savings of the U.S. versus the rest of the world. So it really does paint this picture where you may not be as far behind as you think, but then again, some of us are behind, and there is some things we need to do about that, because when you look at these numbers, you look at the real number, look at the median number. If you're in our age range, the middle person in the country has 115,000. So if you're under that number and you have less than 115,000 saved up at that point of life, it may be time to start looking at this and saying, okay, I am actually a little bit behind. I'm not going to panic about that, but I might want to look into some alternate ways of either speeding up my retirement savings or ways to make my money go further when I do actually want to retire.
And I think that's really the exciting part, is that you get to think outside the box, which means your options, grow when you start looking outside the box. There's so many different things and so many different ways of approaching it. When you get outside of that, narrow and the path that everybody's taking, look off to the side, get off that path, and look at the different options. Because once you, specifically if you head overseas, things are going to look totally different. And a lot of times people get concerned about giving up quality of life, or like some of the things that you truly enjoy. And honestly, you not only get to have those, but even maybe in some places get to step it up a little bit more than what you've had in the past.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are looking at this and saying, this is all great, but I make $6,000 a month. I have to spend $6,000 a month. Those are my bills. I cannot invest anything. How am I ever going to get this number up to where it needs to be? And that is the position we were actually in just 7 years ago. Was we were making $8,000 a month. We were spending $8,000 a month, and we were never. We were just like, oh man, I wish I could contribute to our retirement, but we really couldn't ever do it for years and years and years. Put $0 in our 30s and early 40s, and that is what really set us behind, because those are the years, if you look at the charts, that people are making big moves. So if you're in your 30s or 40s and you can't do that, or you already passed that by and you didn't do it like we did, it is time to start thinking a little differently. And so we started moving our income online, and we decided to hit the road and do full-time travel. That sounds like it would be a detriment, but actually, if you talk to a lot of full-time travelers, you look at our budget online that we've been putting out for the last year, our budget we set was $4,000 a month, which was half of our budget when we lived in Atlanta. And that was still a pretty extravagant budget. There were many months where we could have lived on $2,000 a month.
And we did. And I think, that's something that really makes a difference in all of this, is when you have all that stuff to maintain, it also costs you a lot to maintain those things. So the costs continue to increase instead of decreasing. You have to spend more. You're in a house, the older the house gets, what happens? plumbing starts to go bad, things go wrong in the yard, you know, trees are overgrown and you have to pay to get them cut down, you get leaks, you have to replace the roof, you have to replace the air conditioners. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And don't get me started on those HOA letters of all the different projects that they want you to do to your house. You know, from painting it to making sure that your yard is perfect and perfectly patched and everything. It really adds up a lot. And then add on to that any other things of, I mean, once we started like emptying out our house, we were like, this is astounding to see how many things we had piled into this home. Mind you, the last home that we sold was a home that we downsized to. We had so much stuff still that we moved over to that downsized home. We weren't even using half of the stuff. We were like, what even is this? I don't even know what's in this box. What are these things? I don't know where they even came from. You just end up with a lot of stuff that you don't actually need. It's so freeing when you know, do something like what we're doing. We're not saying everybody needs to do this, but it is so freeing for us. It was to, you know, kind of get rid of all the stuff, strip that away, and boy, has our quality of life increased. And I feel like I'm richer now with experiences rather than with things.
Yeah, people act like bills are like mandated by the government, that you have to have a ton of bills. Like, oh, I have all these bills. Why don't you just get rid of the bills? Like, get rid of the things that cause the bills, and then you won't have any bills. Like, so we don't have a house. Guess what? No bills. We don't own any cars anymore. We sold both of our cars. We had, you know, you could make 2 car payments. You could make 2 car insurance payments, 2 sets of oil changes, gas, and 2 cars every month. That is thousands of dollars a month. Just getting rid of our cars and deciding to, you know, live in cities where we didn't even need a car. It's been so freeing. It's like we literally went from 8,000 to 4,000 spending like that, and then when we want to, we can go to 2,000. It's be pretty hard for us to get under 1,500. That's about where
Yeah.
you could definitely do it. You get under 1,000, but at about 1,500 a month in spending, you start to make choices that are tougher, and so we don't want to make those choices. So
Yeah,
we didn't need to.
Yeah, you start to make, you have to make some sacrifices at that point. That's why you want to try to, you know, get some income to help bring up the, you know, the amount that you can live off of, because even though we cut ours in half, it's still high. I mean, even when we try to spend 4,000, you know, and get the things that we like, and get a nice apartment, and, you know, or a hotel or whatever in nice places, but we don't, half the time we don't end up spending all 4,000.
Yeah, and so a lot of people, they think, well, I don't make enough money. But is it that you have an earning problem, or is it that you have a spending problem? And is that spending problem dictated by you, or is it dictated by your circumstances? Because some of us, before we even wake up in the morning for the month, $6,000 is already out the door with your insurances, your car payments, your house payments, your HOA fees. It's like 6,000, boom. That's where we were. Before we even looked at the bills, guaranteed 6,000 in bills. And then the other 2,000 was like, okay, well, let's try to cut back on groceries and cut back on the eating out. That's only going to save you a few $100s. You have to cut some of the big stuff out if you really want to make a change and go from no retirement savings to big retirement savings. So that's the thing we would say. Now, if your number that you have is over that 115,000 and you're in our age range, maybe you're on the right track. And the thing is, then you have to ask the question, well, how long do I want to do this? Like, do I want to do this till I'm 75 and just keep working until I get there? Because you could also make the choice to start looking at alternative lifestyles if you want to, in fact, retire early and you don't want to do this for another 15, 20 years.
Yeah, because at some point you're trading some of the best years of your life for cash, and you're giving up the opportunities to be able to have experiences that you may not be able to do later because, you know, of physical things or other things that come into the mix, because you just don't know.
Yeah, it is very true that the longer you wait, the less you'll get to do. And most people run out of time before they run out of money because we overplan, we overworry, and we are really concerned about not running out of money. but then we don't start doing the things we wanted to do or take that chance. So it is something to really keep in mind and take a good look at these numbers and see where you really stand, because most of our evidence is anecdotal in nature. We talk to a few people at work, we talk to a few people in our neighborhood, and people don't really talk about how much they have, but you may know a few people how much they have, and if you have less than them, you're bound to think, oh, I'm way behind because my brother has this much, or my sister has this much, my neighbor, I know they have this much. That's 3 people, so look at the entire country and get a good sense of where you fit on that median scale. That'll give you a true sense of where you actually stand, and then what you need to do about it. Because no matter where you are, even if you're at 0 today, we were at 0 not that long ago, and we made it work because we were willing to do some things that were unconventional and that other people were not willing to do.
Yeah, and that's important to just start look at all of the options. Don't just look at the options that you know of or that everybody around you has done or what people expect you to do. Look at all the options. Start looking at things that are a little bit different. Even if you're questioning it, go ahead and look at them, because you're going to be surprised at what those options will offer you.
Yeah, one thing I know for sure is that we were making 8,000, we were spending 8,000. We didn't have much retirement savings. That was never going to work. It was never going to make it because we had 0 that we can invest every month. So if you're making 4,000 and you're spending 4,000 and you don't have any retirement savings, doing that for the next 20 years is not going to work. It's just because you can't add anything to your pot. And so that's when you have to start looking, okay, what else could I do? What kind of side hustle could I get? How can I get some of this money online? How could I live in a cheaper area? How could I get rid of this car, not have to make car payments, oil changes, all that? That's where you need to start really thinking about making a change. When we were there, we made the change, took the bold step. We were just like, we're going to do it all at once. We're going to get rid of everything, see how this works out. And it's worked out really well.
Yeah, it really has. Guys, hopefully this will give you something to think about if you weren't already thinking in this direction. Maybe it'll kind of point you to something to start thinking about. If you were thinking about it, kind of a little reinforcement for you to continue down that path. You've probably got questions. Go ahead and leave those for us down below in the comment section. Give us a like if you enjoyed this video, and hopefully we'll see you next time.